Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. You know how much we all love our retro games?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing quite like firing up an old Game Boy
Yeah.
or like a Super Nintendo and just kind of diving back into those,
It's pure nostalgia.
those pixelated worlds.
Yeah.
And the 8-bit soundtracks, and
The music.
it just
the
takes you
game.
back to a simpler
It's
time.
in a part time. Yeah.
And a lot of us kind of rediscover those old games through, places like YouTube. People
Yeah.
sharing their love of those games online.
Mm.
It's awesome to see the community that's built up around it.
It really is.
But there's also a bit of a dark side to all this.
Oh.
Because copyright law and retro gaming, they kind of clash sometimes.
They do.
And we've seen this recently with Russ from Retro Game Corps,
Oh, yeah, I've seen this.
a really popular YouTuber who reviews retro handheld devices.
Yeah.
And he's been hit with a bunch of copyright strikes from Nintendo.
Oh, wow. That's no good.
Yeah. It's a real shame because, he's not trying to pirate games or anything like that. He's showcasing these devices.
Right.
He's educating his community.
Yeah.
He's helping to preserve gaming history in a way.
Definitely.
And Nintendo is, they're trying to protect their intellectual property.
Yeah.
Which is understandable.
Mm-hmm.
But it creates this kind of tricky situation for creators like Russ.
It does, because on the one hand, you have the legal side of things and the company's right to protect their IP.
Right.
But then you have the whole preservation of gaming history side of it, too.
Exactly. And how do we, find that balance?
Right.
And I think this is a conversation that's worth having.
Absolutely.
I think. What we want to do in this deep dive is really explore this issue.
Okay.
Look at what's happening with Russ. Look at the broader implications for retro gaming and creators.
I like it.
And hopefully, come to some understanding of,
Yeah.
where do we draw the line? How do we balance these competing interests?
A good question.
And I'd love to get your take on this because I know you've been following this whole emulation debate
I have
for a
that.
long time.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it, actually.
Yeah, so maybe you could start by kind of explaining to our listeners, like, what exactly is emulation?
Sure. So emulation, like you said, is something I've been following for a while, and it's really fascinating because, in essence, what it's doing is using software to essentially create a virtual version of a video game console. So you can take, like you said, your old cartridges or your ROMs and actually play them on your computer or your phone or whatever device you're using.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing. It's like a time machine for video games.
Yeah, like a little time machine that lets you revisit all your favorite childhood games.
Exactly. And it's
Maybe.
become so popular because it allows people to access
Yeah.
games that are no longer easily available. Maybe the original hardware is
Yeah, super expensive.
super expensive, or it's broken down, or you can't find it anymore.
Hard to find.
Yeah, so emulation kind of fills that gap and allows people to keep playing these games.
So it's like it's playing a crucial role in preserving gaming history
It is, yeah.
in a way.
Yeah, because without emulation, a lot of these games would just be lost to time. They wouldn't be playable.
Yeah, they'd be gone. And that's a real shame because, these games are a part of our culture.
They're part of our history. They're part of our childhoods for a lot of us. And there's a lot of creativity and artistry that went into making these games.
It's art.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a shame to think that we might lose that.
It would be a tragedy. And so Russ is using emulation to review these retro handheld devices.
He is.
Right? He's not distributing illegal ROMs or anything like that. He's just showing the gameplay
Right.
on these devices and talking about them and educating people.
Right. Which is something that a lot of creators do on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's a valuable service, I think.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it helps people make informed decisions about what to buy. If you're interested in retro gaming, you can see what these devices are like.
Right, so like a museum tour, but for 4. Video games, you get to see these old relics and how they work.
Exactly.
And appreciate them for what they are.
And learn about them.
Yeah, and so Nintendo's coming after him with these copyright strikes. And
Which is interesting because Nintendo is notoriously protective of their IP.
they are, yeah.
I mean, they've been very aggressive in the past about going after people who use their IP without permission.
So it's not entirely surprising, but it is,
Yeah.
Concerning
for creators like Russ because
It is.
YouTube has this 3 strikes system. And if you get 3 copyright strikes, that's it. Your channel's gone.
Their channel's gone.
It's done.
It's like a digital guillotine.
Yeah, it's a very harsh system.
Yeah. And so Russ is facing that right now.
He is, and it's a
It's
real
a threat to his livelihood.
Understandably, it's a big problem, because a lot of these creators, they depend on YouTube for their income.
Their job.
It's their job. It's how they make a living. And so to have that taken away because of these copyright strikes is
Yeah, it's scary.
it's really
Scary for creators, and I think it kind of stifles creativity. It does, because if you're like constantly worried about getting a copyright strike, you're not going to be as free to express yourself or to create the content that you want to create.
Exactly. And that's a loss for everyone.
It is.
You know, a loss for the creators. It's a loss for the community.
To the viewers.
It's a loss for gaming history.
For gaming history. Yeah.
And, you know, Nintendo might say, well, we're just trying to protect our intellectual property. We don't want people profiting off of our games without our permission.
Right. They have a right to protect their creations.
They do. Absolutely.
But where's the line?
That's the question.
Yes.
Where do you draw that line between protecting your IP and allowing creators to thrive?
Yeah. And I think there has to be some kind of middle ground.
There has to be.
There has to be a way to allow people to share their love of these games, to educate people about these games, to preserve gaming history without, you know, stepping on the toes of the companies that created them.
Yeah, and I think that's where maybe YouTube could come in and play a role. Yeah. What do you think YouTube's responsibility is here?
I mean, they've created this platform where people can share their love of gaming, but they also have a responsibility to protect the creators who are using that platform.
All right, and to make sure that copyright law is being upheld, but also that it's not being used to stifle creativity.
Yeah. It's a tough balance.
It's a tough balance.
It's a tough balance.
And you know, I don't know what the answer is.
I don't think there's an easy answer, but I think it's a conversation that we need to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, the source material that we were looking at for this deep dive, it really highlights the need for a more nuanced approach.
It does.
You know, we can't just have these black and white rules. We need to be able to look at each situation individually.
And take into account the context.
Yeah, and consider, you know, what's the purpose of this content? Is it educational? Is it transformative? Is it just trying to, you know, rip off the original game?
Right. Is it fair use?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that the courts are going to have to grapple with.
Yeah. I mean, it's a legal question, ultimately.
It is.
But it's also a cultural question.
It is.
It's a question about, you know,
Yeah.
how do we preserve our history? How do we allow creativity to flourish?
And how do we protect the rights of creators?
And all of those things are important.
They are.
Yeah. So I think,
Okay.
you know, I don't know if we have any answers today.
No, I don't think we do.
But I think we've raised some good questions
I think so.
and
I think so.
got people thinking about, you know, this issue.
About this issue, yeah. Because it's an important one.
It is.
And it's not going away anytime soon.
No, it's not. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we understand the different perspectives, the better chance we have of finding a solution.
A solution that works for everyone.
Yeah, a solution that works for the creators, the companies.
And the fans.
The fans, exactly.
So I think on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. But
Yeah.
I would love to hear what our listeners think.
You know, do you think companies like Nintendo should be more lenient with creators who use emulators? Or are they right to crack down to protect their games?
Where do you draw that line?
Yeah, where do you think the line should be drawn?
Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, let's keep this conversation going. And until next time,
Happy gaming.
happy gaming.